Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morton. My pronouns are she, her. I am the artist and studio manager here at Baltimore Clayworks, and we are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual artist talk given today by Adam Chau. He has curated the Lunar Project, a series of exhibitions across the United States featuring artists that celebrate the Asian New Year. For more information about our artist talks, please visit our virtual library at baltimoreclayworks.org. And I will now turn it over to Adam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Chau, and I'm calling from Connecticut. I just recently moved to Connecticut about 3 weeks ago, so I'm a little unfamiliar with the region that I'm in. I have spent the last couple of years in the Hudson Valley. I also work as a curator for Arts Westchester in Westchester County in New York. So I've spent many years in right above New York City. And I'd love to talk to you today about a multi-year project that I've curated and want to share just the clay side of things. I know this is Baltimore Clayworks, so this project has been multimedia in scope. However, I'd love just to share the ceramic portion of it. So I'm going to share my screen and start this slideshow. And I can see some of you, if someone can just give me a thumbs up that they can see the screen so I know we're good to go. Yep. Okay, great. So the Lunar Project, I say started in 2019, but actually it started in 2018 through an exhibition at NCECA. The exhibition was called Oriented, and it was about how Asian American artists were using art to explore their identity as Asian Americans. And I do make a distinction between Asian art because I do believe that within art history, Asian ceramics, primarily from China, Japan, and Korea, are held on a pedestal and are seen as both exotic and precious and kind of the top of the tier when it comes to ceramics. And I really wanted to find artists that were using their Asian identity within the US. So I curated a show with myself, Ayumi Horie, Stephen Young Lee, Jennifer Ling Dadchuk, and unfortunately she couldn't make it to the show in 2018, but you can see her pot here. It's Beth Lowe. This was almost like a proof of concept for me. So it was 5 people that showed in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to see how the public really would engage with this kind of idea. And it came with very, very good critical acclaim. And I decided, because I was working at a ceramic center at the time, to enliven the show and make it more in-depth. So I ended up looking at the story of Lunar New Year, and throughout different cultures, through Asia, there are different stories of the Lunar New Year, but one very popular one is called the Great Race. And it's where the Jade Emperor asked all of the animals in the region to meet him at his palace, and they all raced. And there are different characteristics of each animal that gave them the ability to compete. So I ended up asking 12 artists, 12 ceramic artists, to choose an animal, one of the 12 animals of the lunar zodiac, and create an art piece about it, but weave in this idea of being Asian American, or migrating, or just using their identity in an artful way. And I was so happily surprised. One, the artists didn't fight over animals. Everyone got the animal they wanted. There weren't any repeats. So I was so happy about that. And it was so thoughtful too. And I've decided since then to repeat this over and over in different parts of the country, because I feel like we can, there are more than 12 artists, that can explore this idea. So I do want to go through the first year, and was exclusively ceramics, as is this year at Baltimore Clayworks. It was the year of the pig, and this piece was made by Ayumi Horie. And you can see that the pig has It's a female pig, and at the time Ayumi was getting married, and I believe Chloe was pregnant at the time, so she was really thinking about fertility, birth, and that's how she interwove this idea of the pig and fertility. Hatsumi Suyama is a very interesting piece because Hatsumi is from Japan and really wanted to take the horse because she grew up in a very large city. And that city in Tokyo didn't really have that much wildlife around it or country. And she would always dream of horses and wild horses and being in the countryside. So, given this opportunity of choosing an animal, she really wanted to explore why she was dreaming of these horses and these herds. And she created these multiple plates with horses on them. This is Kenjiro Kitade, and I love this piece because it's a bit of a puzzle. And when we displayed it, I really didn't tell too much about it because I wanted people to figure it out themselves. If you can see, there are 12, there are 12 forms here. There are 3 different shapes. And if you zoom closely, you'll see that there are dogs on them. So he did choose the year of the dog. And just to spill the beans of kind of the secret is that this is a code for a calendar, and there's 1 dog for every year. And I'm not sure if you can see my mouse going right here, but January, February, I'm sorry, it goes down. This is February because there's 28 of them. So I'm just really, I was tickled by this piece and how much he worked. It's quite a substantial piece, quite large, and to make 365 dogs is quite a feat. And to turn it into a calendar, which loops in, the Lunar New Year, the Great Race is thought to be a way to teach the calendar to people that were perhaps illiterate. This is Kensuke Yamada, who made a coiled snake, which is a little bit unusual for him. As you might know, his work is primarily figurative for the human figure. But I do love that, it was coil built with coils and using this like really great, this great form. This is Kyungmin Park, and she wrote that she wanted to talk about, really reading the Great Race. One of the versions is that the rat was on the top of the ox's back and leapt forward before the ox when it was crossing the river to get in line, to get in place. So it kind of cheated in a way. So this is a picture of the ox being so enraged that the rat got there before it and is yelling out, red with rage. This is Patty Warshina, who titled this piece, You Dirty Rat. And I just explained one version of the story prior of the ox and the rat. However, in Patty's version, the rat tricked the cat. One version, I'm not sure if Patty was drawing upon, was that the rat was supposed to wake the cat up in time for the race. And it's also important to note that the cat is celebrated in Vietnam instead of the rabbit. So while this is the year of the rabbit, many people in Vietnam celebrate this as the year of the cat. Sin Ying Ho created these rabbits that she started to work with this idea of fertility, a lot like Ayumi Horie. I think rabbits are seen as a symbol of being fertile. And she started to weave that in with female figures. And she has really complemented this show because it has given her a new way of thinking. And now I believe she had just exhibited at the Venice Biennale with work that was inspired by this piece. I should also mention that these pieces are sold as a pair as well. I think that's important. This is Vipul Srivalasa, who was actually in Australia, lives in Australia, born in Thailand, and created these totems, these kind of avatars. And he really wanted to show or express the idea that, these are humanoid figures and the rooster is inside you. So it's really playing with identity of like, do you wear it as a badge of honor? How do you how do you see yourself in relation to all of these animals? He is the year of the rooster. And, every animal has different characteristics. Some people like their characteristics, some people don't. This, I think, is one of pride. Jennifer Ling Dachuk is in San Antonio, Texas, and she created this piece called You Scratch What I might get this wrong. You scratch my back, I scratch none, or I scratch your back, you scratch none. One of the two. And it's a porcelain piece with a monkey paw. She's also the year of the monkey. And if you're familiar with these Asian back scratchers that are typically made with bamboo, they're very common in households. They're cheap and affordable. She created this piece thinking about the objects that are overlooked. Back scratchers, I think, sometimes are seen as less than or part of this culture that's not elevated, which plays into the title as well. This is Stephen Young Lee, who created this piece inspired by the Year of the Tiger. If you can see it, it's partial, but it completes Tony the Tiger, which is, of course, an American pop icon. And Stephen really explores the idea of both the rabbit and the tiger, because when he was born, I believe he was born in January, and he always was told that he was the year of the rabbit. And the rabbit has certain characteristics, and he always kind of thought, oh, this is who I am. Turns out when he looked at the lunar calendar, as you know, this year's Lunar New Year was February 22nd. In February, if you were born in January or before that time, yet it's past the official American New Year, it gets a little iffy. So while he was told that he was the year of the rabbit, he's actually the year of the tiger. And it was this really identity shift for him, and just trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? And what do these symbols mean for people? Why do they hold so much power? And also then weaving in American pop culture, how does Tony the Tiger, fit with our ideals of like the American nostalgia, right? How do we identify with different cartoon characters? This, I will also say, became a very large piece that he exhibited in a museum in the Pacific Northwest called Tiger and Magpies, where he created about a mosaic of these plates, about 50 plates, to create a larger scene with birds, which also call upon these motifs that you could see in Korean moon jars, with a tiger looking at a bird. This is Sung-Koo Ya, and Sung-Koo Ya was really funny because he wanted to be part of the show, and he said, well, I've done most of the animals before, and I don't really want to rehash that. What if I do all of the animals? What if I did everything together? And of course we said yes, because we knew there would be a marvelous piece. And this piece really is 360 degrees. I would say it's about 3 feet, maybe 3.5 feet tall. You can see the little rat on top of the ox. And then the rabbit, the tiger, and the sheep and the horse on the left, but it goes all the way in the back. There's a snake and a dragon wrapping around. It's incredible, a very incredible piece that pulls all of these animals together. Adriel Tong was born in Hong Kong, and he chose the year of the ram. And he really wanted to talk about censorship. So while ceramics might be seen as very lovely and elevated, he wanted to create this juxtaposition. So with these ram's horns on the left-hand side, you can see it's very polished and I would say accurate, right? Rendered very accurately. And then on the other side, it looks very rough. And if, unfortunately, I don't have a zoomed in picture of this, but they are all words that are banned in China. So if you can't Google search them, you can't search them at all, nothing would pop up. So he's really talking about things that have been censored in China, and it's really talking about this dichotomy of the two. For the culmination of the event, I called this year the Great Race. You can see that on the top right, because it was inspired by the story, The Great Race. I wanted to have a banquet, and we had a very lovely restaurant, a Pan Asian restaurant, come and serve um, within the gallery, within all of the artwork. And I think it was such a special night because we also hired a potter, Nikki Lau, to make artwork in response to the food. So we were eating Peking duck, and she created these bowls, which you can see on the left, but they had a cover, and the cover had texture of rice and then a duck egg, like a ceramic duck egg on it. And at the time when I was at Clay Arts Center, I will also mention we were really trying to make these events happen where we had an idea for a show, but then we had a local restaurant and a local potter all come together to create kind of an event where it's all tied together, where the food matched the pottery and the idea of all the food matched the concept of the show. The next year, I was at Mainline Art Center in the Mainline, Haverford in Pennsylvania, which is right next to Philadelphia. And I made it a multimedia show. However, there were ceramics in it. So there were 12 artists, and I'd like to show just the ceramic artists for today. This is Catalina Chang, who created these horses on this vessel. And on the back, it says in very bold font, "These horses are lesbians." And I think that Catalina really wants to put humor in their work and also talk about how perhaps, these animals kind of define us in Asian culture, but we can also define them, right? It's like creating our own autonomy and making kind of changing characteristics or enforcing characteristics to be aligned with ourselves. Sarah Petty had the Year of the Snake, and I thought this was a brilliant piece because there were mirrors that she put on the wall with I believe it was a cobra on it, like etched into the mirror, and these are snake eggs. And I really loved how there was a transition from not just the literal animal, but there was this extra step to it. So the idea of an egg being birthed, the year of the snake, there are all these connotations to it. And you can see some of them were enclosed, some of them were open. So maybe a snake has already hatched from it. Very, very interesting piece. It was also on a layer of sands that was on a light box. So there was a soft glow coming from the top. Tyler Quinton made this piece for the Year of the Dog, and he really wanted to show how perhaps the dog is being seen as cute, cuddly, affectionate, playful. It's chasing its own tail. But then when you spin around, it's actually kind of breaking apart. You can see the inside of the dog and this structure inside, and the structure is actually being torn. You can see a little bit of a bridge right down the middle being torn. And he really wanted to express this idea of like perhaps performing, but the cost of performance. So it is a three-dimensional piece that you can go all around, and there is a front and a back and a story to that. And then Mari Ogihara created a rabbit. This actually isn't the piece that was shown. However, it's incredibly similar. And she puts objects on top of rabbits' backs, kind of carrying them almost like a horse or kind of a symbol that the rabbit can carry. And Mari is actually in the show at Baltimore Clayworks, and I really encourage you to go on site to see it because it's very, I wouldn't say imposing, however, it does lean forward. So it's almost like it's moving towards you. You can kind of see it here. I hope the perspective works where you can see the ears are so tall and it like is almost about to jump forward. And in the version at Baltimore Clayworks, there is a humanoid rabbit figure on the back. And there are didactics throughout the whole show talking about the inspiration of the piece. And there is the lore of the rabbit gaining immortality and going to the moon. So while we have in America, perhaps the man on the moon, there's the rabbit on the moon in Asia. So there's a play between those two things and those two stories. Now I'm going into the actual work at Baltimore Clayworks. I'm not going to go super in depth because I really enjoy it if you went and read the didactics and saw it in person. This is Cindy Long, who created a lamp. These lamps, it does turn on and off, and there's a little bunny tail in the back. This is Gunyong Kim, who created this piece called Trickster. And again, I'm not going to go into the full detail of it because I don't want to spoil it. I think presentations like this, while there's a show up already, kind of spoils the fun of discovering more about the piece. This is Takuro Shibata. And this is Wangling Chau, and it is a multi-dimensional piece. If you go, I please ask you to look at the back of the piece as well. It's very comic-like. It tells a story. It's illustrative. I will go into this piece a little bit because I think the didactic might be a tiny bit confusing. If you can see on the left, there's this picture of a turtle, the cup right here. And then if you look very closely right here, this is a 6-pack, the packaging for a 6-pack of cans. And if you can see the forms throughout all of these pieces, it has this hourglass shape. And this hourglass shape was derived from this very viral picture that came up of a turtle being squeezed, a baby turtle going into a 6-pack of packaging and then growing around the 6-pack package and being pinched in the middle. And this story is the story of how perhaps the rabbit helped the tortoise. And we all know the story of the tortoise and the hare. And I really like this idea of bringing other cultures and other stories that aren't perhaps from the Asian diaspora or from Asia and weaving it in. And I think we can all relate to the rabbit and the hare and this idea of like, well, are they enemies or, what is competition, things like that. And this is a very lovely story of the rabbit trying to save the tortoise. Yunha Pike. I believe this is called Lunar Rabbit. In the picture, I'm not sure you can see scale. I would say it's about 10 inches tall. I don't have a finished image for this piece. I apologize. This is Hitomi Shibata, and you can see it's a large platter. Right now, it has a single rabbit on it, but the actual piece has 2 rabbits on it. This one is, you can see it's alert, it's jumping, it's on 4 legs. The other one is more somber. It's sitting on 2 legs. It's and perhaps its head is facing down a little bit, and there's this dichotomy between the two. There's like happy rabbit, sad rabbit. Julian Shibata. I chose to show here a detail. This is a piece of 15 different tiles, and it explores the rabbit. Each tile has kind of a different story, but it compiles into a larger non-linear one. There are also images of mochi being made, ingredients for it like eggs. There's a scene of fire, and it's displayed in a pyramid. It's the first thing you see when you go into the show. The next pieces I want to contextualize a little bit. I don't think the didactics pull the whole theme through because the didactics are for each specific piece, and each artist talked about their own piece, not as a whole. So I want to introduce everyone to White Rabbit Creamy Candy, which is an extremely nostalgic candy for Asian Americans and in Asia. It's hard to describe. It's a piece of white candy that isn't quite vanilla. It is very creamy, a little bit milky. It's very hard when you put it in your mouth, but then it softens up into more of a taffy. So it's a very hard taffy like candy. It's and it's everywhere. You can go into a local Asian grocery store and most likely find it. So Ling Chung made this piece where you can see the white rabbit candy made in porcelain is popping up all over the vessel. And then the top has this fabulous hair, this fabulous synthetic hair. And if you can peek through the hair, where the scalp would be before the ponytail, you can see these little dots. And the dots look like candy or gum that's stuck onto the hair. And I really ask you to read the didactic. It's a very wonderful story about candy getting stuck in hair. This piece is by Nikki Lau, who creates kind of these trompe-l'oeil series of neon in clay. And neon is a great symbol for like this flashing kind of, it's very flamboyant. It's very eye-catching, very pop. And she chose to, memorialize white rabbit candy as the symbol of Asian culture. And then Stephen King made this piece, which is soda fired, and it's a little subdued. Whereas I think if you didn't quite know and went up to this piece, they would just look like rabbits. But this is the logo of the white rabbit candy. So it's subversive in a way, just like Nikki is doing by immortalizing this symbol. It's a very, I think, a very clever way to honor culture by using such an everyday symbol for us that perhaps not too many other people know. This is Micah Sweezy, who is in the Chicago area, Chicago and Michigan area, and this piece is called Lewis's Teapot, which touches upon albino rabbits. It's a teapot where the mouth is a spout and the little tail comes off where you can pour liquid in, and the ears create the handle. And then Grace Gittleman made 2 mirrors. I also apologize, I don't have a second mirror here for the presentation, but you can see it in person. Grace really talks about, I think, this is a moment of reflection. Again, like all of these people, all of these artists trying to see, well, do I embody the characteristics of this animal? How is this reflected in me? Or is it the other way around and I impart characteristics onto the animal? What is the relationship between the two? What is the relationship between my culture in the US, perhaps being biracial or somewhat removed? Like, what is a way that I can be involved? And then I don't have a great picture of the middle piece, so I showed that this is at Baltimore Clayworks. I'm showing it because this kind of shows the best angle of the middle piece by Shoji Satake, who made a ginger jar. And at first I was super confused when I opened the package because I couldn't figure out where the rabbit was. And I will also spill the beans because I had to work really hard because it took me a day. It took me probably 24 hours to figure it out. There is a negative space right here. That is the rabbit. I'm not sure if you can see it completely. This is the best picture that shows it. And then up here also, there are cutouts that look like rabbit ears. There is a rabbit also in kind of a gold yellow decal on the back, but completely floral. So I love how this piece is kind of a hide and seek game. And I think rabbits kind of do that also, like, camouflaging themselves, changing color, etc. And then I just wanted to touch upon that's the show at Baltimore Clayworks. And to finish up, I am an artist myself, and I just wanted to show a piece that I have created for the Year of the Dragon, as I was born in the Year of the Dragon. I am biracial, and I really sometimes question this relationship to Asian culture and my affinity towards pottery, especially in China, blue and white pottery, which I love so much. The picture on the right, the jar is a Ming Dynasty dragon jar, which is it's very well known. And then the piece on the left is a tile that is pixelated. And I had really thought about my understanding of Asian culture being through television, being through the internet, social media. Everything's flat, right? Everything that I consume is on this like flat surface. So that's why I decided to create tiles that are completely like, they are three-dimensional. They are objects in the world, but they're viewed flat. I also decided to depixelate the piece. I could have drawn this piece on a tile, but I decided to use the idea of pixelation because it's this idea of resolution and really this idea of like, am I somehow like depixelized from my culture, and how do I regain that, and what is the way that I can see this culture, and am I seeing it in a maybe a more blurry way. So yeah, that's a piece that I really think causes a lot of questioning. Thank you so much. My contact, if you have any questions, which we can go into a Q&A here, but if anything arises in the future, or if you have questions about pieces that are not in the Baltimore Clayworks show, please email me. It's info@adamchau.com. And you can also, I'm pretty fast on Instagram. It's Adam Charles Chau.